Hello everyone, I'm Bertie Magee. Woo! You may know me from other presentations, or if you ever went to RPG World, from there. I work at MedHost. I'm a systems programmer there. Well, actually, they call us engineers now. Woohoo, engineer. And
I'm. Need more money?
I got a little more money. And so today I want to talk to you about some of the things that I got from the Common Conference this spring. Thank you, Mitch. And then I also have written this program. It's Retrieve Job Info that I wanted to share with you guys because you can retrieve information about a job that's running that you're monitoring or something. Okay? Well, the first thing I wanted to talk about was, can you guys see that very good? It doesn't look very clear from here. Okay, it's the new freeform opcodes. And I'm going to show you examples of each. We got the H specs. Now they're control op. Then you got file specs will be just declare S. Of course, D specs are several different kinds, so they have several different opcodes. And of course, the procs have a begin and end to begin. So, of these opcodes, there's an example of the header opcode. And notice how you can have one continuous line here, like on that if statement down here, and it's the feed. And see how everything is just a key word now that you've got within there on the options and on the date format. Okay, and then on the file specs, well, there's a lot you need to know about that. Like, for example, usage. You've got to tell it by keyword what kind of usage you have, whether it's keyed, and then the different device types. And that doesn't tell you a lot right there, that table, but this example will. So you have to explicitly say delete if you want to delete a record. And it used to be if you just did update on a file, it would allow you to do deletes. When you're using a free-form definition of file, you've actually got to have it coded with the delete.
So you had to do the input, update, output, delete all together. There's not an all option.
No.
Okay.
You would think there would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But they probably will do that eventually. Any questions about that?
I'm assuming they don't have it all because they want you to at least so you can look at it and read it out, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't put any usage at all, it defaults to input.
Input all.
Okay. And then some declaration definitions there, how we're using, like a standalone would be the DCLS, which is the standalone. Now on the chart on the next slide, I'm going to show you the different kinds, like there's char 1200 right there. I'm going to show you the different kinds you can have.
Let me ask a question on the file specs too. Let's assume we still have fixed format files that you can't define externally. How do you do those?
It would be I don't know. I got to tell you, I don't know how to do that with fixed. I haven't had to do that with any.
There's something about that.
There's something about it, but I don't know how you would do it. But there must be a way to do it, or you wouldn't have to declare external description.
I would think so.
I just don't know how to do it.
And if you don't know how to do it in freeform, just revert to D spec or F spec and don't worry about it. You don't have to put it in free and anything.
Yeah. So this is what I gleaned out of the presentation. So I didn't get everything. So, okay. So I was talking about the declarations, the standalones, as you can see, and then a data structure, and what is that? A prototype and a procedure interface. And there's some constants. But we're going to talk about a little further the data structure because there's a surprise with that coming up. But here's that table I was talking about, the different types that you can define, like the different numerics. Instead of in fixed, you would use those codes, but in the free form, you would use that for defining it. And character, of course, it's just slightly different. It's not too much.
Spells it out more.
It spells it out so you can actually read it and kind of know what it's getting at. And then there's a couple of extra things like date and time. Used to be on the fixed, it was D and T, and now it's date and time. It tells you what it is. Pointers are now the actual word pointer instead of an asterisk, which always confused me why it was just an asterisk anyway. But
You had one column to use for it, so you can place it.
mm-hmm.
The former's been around forever.
Okay, and then just some new things about the V7R3 is there's an own exit now. So no matter why you leave a procedure in there like that, it's going to run that on exit no matter what. Have you seen that, David?
We're not there yet, but I saw it.
It's only at 7.3,
Mm-hmm.
It starts at 7.3.
so it's code that you want to do when you leave, like then you're deallocating on it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. A pointer, yeah.
It'd be like doing a go to end and having code right below that.
Go to. He said the magic word.
Get shot code, get shot words.
Another thing that's pretty new with the 7R3 is now, before when you defined a data structure that was inside a data structure, you had two definitions. Now you can define it as one. Just have, if it's to be qualified, you put it on the first one. See how it's defined inside?
Okay.
Isn't that handy?
Yeah.
Who does that? Who's using it? Are you guys using any of that? I bet you are, David.
Find me a reason I will.
Well, you're
Yeah.
already doing any qualified data structures now.
Oh, yeah.
So it's,
I do some, there's a couple.
you don't have to do the qualified, you just put it inside the other data structure. That makes it more obvious as to what it is.
And what it's used for.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's pretty interesting to me. And then just a random tip in general that I got out of one of the presentations I looked at, that there's a new red book on SQL procedures, triggers, functions. So you guys might want to get it. The link is live there. We get this presentation, you can just click on it, take you straight to the new red book.
Okay.
One thing I found on this was real nice is the or replace.
Actually, I think we have that mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Like David was saying, the or replace really comes in really handy because like before you had to drop the procedure before you create it when you needed to create one if it already existed, but this way you can do or replace and it will just create it if it will recreate it. Also, you can use, everybody know the difference between schema and path? What they're used for?
No.
Okay, so a schema is used to resolve to tables and files and stuff, whereas a path is used to resolve to procedures, functions, and global variables. Okay? Okay, and then because I just mentioned the SQL manual, I thought I'd go ahead and put all the different joins that we have. Everybody recognize all these joins?
Join it to itself. You've been able to do that, but it wasn't called a self-join anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what it is, okay.
You just use left outer join. He's done the same thing, left in.
It sounds like something politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
Just like why?
Self-identifying, self-joining.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't use three of those.
So yeah, you only use a handful of those, but I thought I'd put it out there because nobody ever knows what all the joins are. And when you get interviewed somewhere, they're going to ask you all the different join questions, like you use that on a regular basis. So that was just a good interview tip right there, a good slide to have when you're on a phone interview, to have there in front of you to answer those questions.
You know, a question you can use to buy time, to think of what it is, ask them what release. Because they're different, that's a later release than the others.
And then another thing that I don't know if you guys have used, but Union. Have you used Union in there to select widgets item number?
Yeah.
Union. Okay, so example of that would be on this intersect of what you were saying. Intersect is composition of subselects. So in this particular example, I'm doing an intersect with these two tables. I'm pulling them both together. And the result will be just these, because these are the only records that are in both files.
Kind of like inner join.
Kind of like inner join. And then except gives me everything that's an exception from the table. So it will show you every record in the current table that does not match or exist in the saved table.
Let the exception join.
Questions about that?
Are these new? Are these new to?
I don't think they're new to 7R3. They're just some stuff that they covered in the thing. And then there's a couple of miscellaneous 7R3 things, like the audit parameter record for your create and change a profile. Does anybody use that? I thought you might, Alan.
No, 7.3 yet.
Oh, no. But there was always a CP record. It's just got more information on it now. So,
I think that came out around 7.1, 7.2 with a PTF back to 7.1. But they keep adding columns to it.
yeah, that's what they done. Add more
Just
columns.
dump all the journal entries in like every 2 hours during the day, and then send it up to QRadar, IBM's security tool, and then our security guys go through there and filter down whatever they want to see.
And that was most of what I got out of those slides and presentations that I got from Common that was new. Because, I did this last year and there was a lot of new stuff. I didn't want to talk about the same thing. So instead, I wrote a program, and I want to share that program with you. It's called Retrieve Job Info. And this is what it does. You can call it with the job name user, and then the job number, or you don't have to. You can just call it with just the job name. But this is what kind of information it can return, whether a job is inactive, it just didn't run yet, hasn't ran, inactive, or it's actively running, if it's in a message wait, or if it's complete, that it's looking at the spool file from the job to see if it's complete. And then if it needs to be restarted, in other words, it canceled. It's not active, but it needs to be restarted. It has started at some point. Now, you might wonder where you would need this kind of program, but where I'm using it is I have a job that runs interactively. It submits out other jobs, and then it waits for these other jobs to finish and come back to it. And then it runs some more, and then it goes out and does this. But it wants to keep up with those submitted jobs. So this is what I do. I know what I called the job when I submitted it. So to get this information, I have, of course, had to build some data structures, some standalone fields and such. And I'm using a user space. Everybody familiar with user space? Okay. So I'm using a user space to collect the data into. So if this job is ran 3 times and canceled 3 times, I need that space because it'll hold multiple pieces of information. Okay? And I'm using I soft-coded, or well, not really soft-coded, but hard-coded that list format name, but I coded it in the D-spec instead of just using the format name when I call this. Okay, but I don't in every instance. So anyway, I got a generic header for when for the user space. And then I've got a list data that I'm going to be using those fields in. So I got my create space, and it's going to be used in the API QUSR CRTUS to create that space with. We're going to just create one on the fly and then delete it at the end. That's why we got the delete space up there. Okay, and then I've got to the list job, which is API QUSL JOB. And then I'm also doing the retrieve. I actually have these out of order. If I was redoing this, I'd put that one up after it because I like them in the order that makes sense. But the retrieve space data is the QUSRTVUS. But I thought it was so much easier to say list data than to use that proper name when I try to.
I never use that. I do just like you're doing, give it a name of the program that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So when you look at it, you know what you were doing. Okay. And then the retrieve the job info. This is a powerful API because it has multiple formats, which I'll talk about those a little bit here in a minute. But as you can see, I'm inputting the job name, the username. I'm returning back the username, the job number, and the run status if they don't send some of that information. Because if they don't send it, what I do is if they don't send the username, I just say anybody that's done this job. So I put all. The job number entry, I put all in it if they didn't include it. Now, if you include that information, it's going to be dead on. You're going to get it right the first time. But the chances of you having the job number is going to be rare because you submitted that out. You'd have to go dump it or do something with it to capture that job number. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so I set some parameters here, and then I create that user space. Very simple, create that user space. And if you notice back up here, let's go back up to where it says authority. And I also need to cover something else real quick. Where I see authority, I just have it as all. It doesn't really matter because nobody else is using it. It's just this workspace for this one call. But I also forgot to mention, and I'm glad I paged back up, is that I copied the layouts out of QSys Inc. because they are included with the system. It's not a copy, it's not something we wrote or anything like that. That's just included. You can see the ones that I was using there. Okay, anyway, so I created the user space. Then I immediately use it because I use my list job API to list every occurrence of that job into the user space. Then I want to get the last instance of it. Well, I get the first instance first, and then I get the, right, let me arrow, I can't arrow down. Anyway, I want to get the last one of it right there on the retrieve space data. It should be right there. Oh, and then retrieve space data right up at the top gets the last one. Because I don't want to get the first occurrence of this job. I don't need to know the last occurrence because The last occurrence is going to know whether it was in message wait or if it's complete, might have completed this time normally and would be wanting to go back. And then I just do these 3, which I don't even need 600. I put it in there and was using something else from it, but I don't really need it. But it didn't hurt to go get it. You could take it out when you code this yourself. Because all I really need is 200 and 400. I'm going to zip down here real quick and show you what those are. 200 is the work active job information. Look at all the different formats you can send in for this API. All the different information you can gather on a job. Isn't that handy? But I'm using 200 and I'm using 400 to gather some information. And what I'm gathering, whoops, wrong way, is the status field right there. If you're wondering where that came from the list data. When I did the list data, that got the status of it. And then if the status is blank, that means the job's never ran. It must be inactive. When the status is active and that QUAJS is in message wait, I got that from the 200 format. Okay? I'm going to make it message wait as my return. And then if it's, of course, when the job status is active, well, we'll just return back active. But you see, I'm not returning back the asterisk or anything. I'm returning back the word active. I'm not returning back with that preceding asterisk because message wait won't have when I wanted it to be consistent what the kind of information it returned back. Then, if I found that the status is actually on the out queue, it means it's ran, it's completed somehow. How did it complete? If it's on the out queue, and the number, of course, is greater than space, because if you don't check that, you'll get an error. Because I'm going to change I'm going to get the end status that I got from the 400 record right here, end job status. I'm going to turn that field into a character. And the reason I did that was because it was binary. And I wanted to know whether it was just a 1 in there or something else. If it's a 1 in there, that means it completed normally. If it's anything other than a 1, it means it completed abnormally. So I just say it needs to be restarted. Otherwise, which should never happen, I'm going to make it inactive. And then I'm going to delete my space and end the program. Anybody have any questions about this? Can you see how you could use this?
What's your OS level? What's your OS level?
OS level.
Operating system level.
We're at 7.1.
7.1.
Mm-hmm.
You got the technology refresh. 11 on it?
I don't know. I don't know what we got.
7 came out in 7.3. Technology refresh at 7.2 was around 5 or 6. 7.1 was around 9 or 11. I don't remember the exact numbers. But this information now is available through an SQL statement with a table function. And you can grab it through an SQL statement now. But you can't do a whole lot with it. With this, you got your own program. You can do whatever you want to do with it. You've got to use it the way they put it together. But it's got the same params that you do with the table functions. Brings it back and you having a program that's just an SQL statement. Bring in your variables and go with it. They've done a bunch of stuff that way for 7.1, 7.2. That you can use an SQL statement to get a lot of stuff now that we had to go this way. I've done this, not that thing, but similar stuff many times, that looks like a good little tool to me, but it depends on what you
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But, and it was just only for a one-time shop kind of deal, not a API like you got it, which that's a lot more useful than what I ended up putting up together.
Anybody else have any questions? Do you see where you could use any of that, Alan?
Not me from a system standpoint, but I know, about application development, they do the same concept, but they had stuff set up for, 15 years with, and one example I know for sure is our night recycling. That does the batch processing for the previous day. That one job literally kicks off probably 40 or 50 jobs. And they use a lot of data areas and, throw stuff out there to check the status kind of thing. But it doesn't have as much functionality if you wanted specifics like ALQ and this stuff. They're just looking to see if the job that's processing all the daily sales for Florida is complete before they kick off Texas, before they kick off, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a
That's pretty much a application-specific
Yeah.
use for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's, all you could do back 20 years ago when they developed all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jim, yeah.
That's a lot what basically what you're using that for, though, that kind of thing.
Mm.
What you dropped around.
Mm-hmm.
No, I
They
can
would
see that.
monitor your job so you don't have to sit there in front of it and look at it. Work the IT job or work whatever you want to use and look at it. You got a program monitoring that like she's got. And then it can notify you if there's something that's meets your
Mm-hmm.
call me parameters.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I did not practice this presentation at all. This was all from the hip. I just finished it today. So it's going to be short and sweet. Because basically I thought we would probably talk about more stuff.
Never apologize.
No, if you hadn't said that, we'd have never known.
And then, of course, the end.